Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weird World of Knowing. I'm Rachel Earing, and yet again, I have a wonderful guest for you this week. This guest is really particularly special for me because Jimmy Petruzzi is one of my very first trainers in NLP. It was a really beautiful experience, and I met some really wonderful people, and it was a complete eye-opener to the language that we use and how actually the work that I was already doing with Reiki and energy work actually really very much overlap with the NLP side of things. Now, NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, for those of you who do not know what that is. But Jimmy is far more than just NLP. So let me read a little bit of Jimmy does. So he's a hypnotherapist, an NLP trainer, award-winning coach, and a best-selling author. He's a fantastic speaker, an award-winning one, a developer of cognitive reprocessing. He's a radio broadcaster, musician, committee member, communications officer, and co-chair for the North West England British Psychological Society, and editor for the Society of England's Bulletin. So, Jimmy, you have got an awful lot going on in your life, and it's an absolute delight to have you here. So, welcome. First of all, you tell us a little bit about you and your background, because you've not always been a trainer. You used to do an awful lot in sports as well. So, and that interests me as well, because
Yeah,
my eldest son, he's a semi-pro footballer. So your background and his background, and I keep trying to get him to come on to one of your courses, but he's
yeah,
not
yeah,
having it yet.
yeah. No, absolutely. And it's been nice to see you, Rachel. It's always good to sort of connect with yourself, and you're obviously doing some great work out there, which is great stuff. And like he says, it was a special group. The sort of course you came on board as wonderful people, and I suppose the great thing about these courses, you sort of make these lifelong friends, really. But I suppose your question there in terms of how I position myself in the world of NLP, amongst other things. My journey started with hypnotherapy originally. So I had this sort of interest in hypnotherapy very young. I'd have been in my late teens. I was quite intrigued by hypnotherapy because I had a number of my own issues as a teenager growing up around sort of confidence and belief. And I had very severe asthma as a child. And that really sort of took a lot of confidence out of me, because I wanted to aspire in sport, but I had this really severe asthma as well. And it kind of knocked my confidence really growing up. And I sort of looked far and wide to find people who could help me with confidence. And I came across this guy who had a background in sports psychology and hypnotherapy. And he really helped me a lot. And he actually suggested that I go to a seminar at the time. And the seminar was by Tony Robbins. He was in Sydney, where I'm originally from. And I went to see Tony at the Water Pavilion, it was called at the time. And I noticed he used like techniques which were similar to hypnosis, really, to good effect. And that kind of led me on the journey to sort of want to learn more. And I suppose the skills originally were to sort of help me overcome sort of these issues. And having severe asthma as a child wasn't great, because particularly at that time, things have sort of moved on since then, no doubt, I would think. But at that time, I suppose it was even more so challenging, because you sort of, I suppose, the confidence of having to sort of, always have medication with you, the sort of fear of sort of sometimes losing your breath and other things, really, and just general things like sporting events, and is always in the back of your mind. And I'd sort of been to A&E on a number of occasions, sort of growing up with sort of breathing issues, and it wasn't great, really. And I think I needed something outside the box, Rachel, to sort of help me build my confidence. And it wasn't long after that I decided to, you know what, I'm going to pack my bags and travel the world and try my hand. And I sort of traveled in a lot of different countries. And I certainly don't suggest anybody else do this, but I decided to do this, and it's sort of well documented. I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go without the medication. I don't want people to get the wrong impression and think that, I'm sort of not any medication, my stretch of the imagination. No, that helped me growing up. But I felt that at that point, I'm going to see, in terms of I just tried different strategies in terms of, and I think for me anyway, I'd sort of manifested as anxiety that went with the sort of the breathing as well. So I kind of got in control of that in my late teens and early 20s, and that really had a big knock-on effect. So what I would do whenever I was sort of experiencing any sort of, breathing, I just manage my breathing and go to my sort of safe place mentally. And that was a big help. And that really made me realize just how powerful. I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that hypnosis is what sort of helped me. Could have outgrown it. I don't know. I'm sure medical people have a better insight than me. I'm not medically qualified, but it just showed me that the power of the mind, the power of sort of, being able to just sort of get back control of my own mind and get out there and have a go from there.
So just going back to that then, Jimmy. So this realization that you wanted to go without your medication, which again was very much Jimmy's journey, everybody. Um, was that one of your weird moments of knowing?
It was for me because, growing up, I had to check in with the doctor every week. It was pretty much every week he'd go down, he'd measure the sort of lungs and listen and give me the, medication to take. I'd have to take it at school and at different times during the day. And that in itself, I suppose, at that point, it was different. Skills were different to probably what they are now. And, you get sort of stick from other people thinking, what's he sort of, taking the inhaler every sort of so often. And then on top of that, later on in my teens, I had these severe allergies. I think that was a sort of grass dust. And I'd go in every week and take it, like an allergy shot and on a Saturday evening. And the reason I would take it on a Saturday evening because I sort of play sport on Sundays and that was obviously on grass and so I did that but then the moment of knowing for me, Rachel, if I'm honest, was I remember one time as a sort of I really struggled to sort of get my breath and I went into sort of A&E to get checked out and it was after like playing sport. I was probably about 17, 18. I drove myself there and I remember sort of sitting there thinking, should I just give up playing sport and other things? And I spoke to it was the doctor there at the time and I just sat there, those moments you kind of just reflect and think, I started sort of thinking how life can be unfair and other things. And I know people have got obviously worse things to contend with, but what's on your list is on your list. Yes. And I sat there thinking, I said, what's it all about? I'm doing everything I'm told to do. I'm going in there throughout my sort of up until being a teenager, every week go in to see, GP, get checked in, taking this sort of, allergy things. But this is still happening. So that was my moment of knowing I said, I've got to try and find something for me, to be able to manage this, because this is not going to be me. I'm not going to sort of spend my life in this cycle. And that's for me, but knowing that I had to sort of think outside the box for me, because I wanted to play sport. I wanted to travel the world. I want to do things. I want to do all the other things that people my age were doing as well, going out and other stuff. And I want to do it without sort of being afraid that, being afraid of what the consequences could be. And that's not undermining. Obviously, I'm not a medical person. I'm perfectly aware. And I do know that sort of, medical advance has come a long way and sort of, not suggesting by any stretch of imagination anyone follow my path, but that was my decision. I made it. And I never looked back since really in that respect. I'm not saying I didn't have moments along the way where I wasn't concerned, but I felt in my own mind, there were different ways. There were other ways I could sort of manage this sort of process and have a full life as possible.
Mm. Really interesting that, Jimmy. What journey did that actually take you on then after this?
Yeah, it gave me the journey to learn more about the mind and the impact the mind has on the body and sort of anxiety and mood and other things. And it took me on a journey. I sort of, I'd travel the world. I'd be to a lot of different countries around the world for sport and education. And I decided eventually to do a course at Loughborough Uni as a sports performance conditioning course. I was, early 20s. And at the time I was doing some work in London as well with some of the most high profile footballers and people in the world of sport. More on a physical point of view, integrate the mental side too, as well with them. I was getting big results and in that respect, and people were sort of looking, thinking, what's he doing different to everybody else? And I had a first for like education. Then I sort of just studied every course I could find in, NLP and hypnosis and eventually sort of my own journey in academia would take me to Bolton Uni, I studied teacher training there. Liverpool, I studied psychology there. King's College London, I studied neuroscience there, and I'd gone to Arizona on a number of occasions to sort of study hypnosis. With Jeff Syke, we set up the Erickson Foundation. He was a student of Erickson, Milton Erickson, and he would have a really big influence on me in terms of integrating all these modalities I learned over the years, and that would really help galvanize my sort of way of working, my own process. I realized through working and learning through Jeff, and I still do now sometimes online. Obviously, the pandemic has meant I haven't been able to get to Arizona the last couple of years, but I'm having to go back soon and hook up again. But I think it's online. That really helped me galvanize and think, okay, I've got to find my own way as a therapist trained. I've got a style is probably a strong word, but my own way of working.
Mm.
You know, I've learned from some of the best in the world. Now it's time for me to sort of to sort of adapt all these things I've learned over the years and find my own way of working, and hopefully sort of share those learnings and processes with people who are within my remit of
Mm.
competence to work with. So I work with a broad range of people you mentioned earlier, and hopefully I can sort of help them, you know, go to where they want to go to. It's just more performance related to work I do. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
So, how have your weird moments of knowing sort of happened for you? Have they sort of crept up on you? Have they just integrated really beautifully into your life as have you gone seamlessly from one thing to the next? Or
Yeah, and that's a good point, a good question, really, Rachel. For me, I never, I know it's a sort of cliche, but for some people, you know, say it's a passion, I always want to help and do this, that, and the other. For me, it's a little bit different. For me, it was just, I suppose the analogy and the metaphor is it's kind of like a kayak in the water and just navigating my way through. I never had this sort of passion that some people talk about and desire to want to change the world or help people, anything like that. It was just a question of, okay, I'll follow the path. You know, the universe sets me and I've got my goals, and my goals were to be the best I can be in my field. But along that journey, the weirdness of knowing with the presentation, the clients that would come to me and ask for help. And it was kind of like a sign, well, that could be a direction to consider. Someone would come along and it wasn't for me. And intuitively, I felt that's not an area I want to go into, but someone would come along and it kind of excited me in the sense I thought, okay, I'd like to work with, so for example, sport predominantly is what it started with, but then outside sport, people coming along saying, can you help me with this sort of fear, this phobia? Can you help me with many other things in business? And I kind of stop, think about it and think, okay, how can I sort of adapt my skills? Some opportunities are not back. They weren't for me. Others, I thought, okay, intuitively, I had this feeling that it was for me. So, yeah, more like a sort of kayak in the water, sort of navigating its way on its journey, the lifelong journey of learning too. I sort of always decided to learn things that I felt that I wanted to learn, this sort of drive to learn more
Mm.
about that area. So, yeah, it's just been a smooth transition for me, these sort of sequences of moments. And those moments have come to me. It could be just anything from going for a walk around the lake and I have this sort of epiphany and I come back and write it down. You know, I don't know, driving across the States, for example, you know, sitting at the Grand Canyon, just in, you know, thinking deep into space. And I just have these moments where you sort of think, okay, how about we try this? And a bit like the sort of, you know, as you know, I've written a number of books and it's a bit like, I'll give you an example to the listeners. It's like when I wrote the book, Finding Forever in the Moment, I didn't have any desire to write that book. It wasn't like I want to write the book that sort of changed the world. I read many books before. I literally was in the height of the pandemic. There was so much sort of news coming in and, you know, it was a very difficult time for a lot of people, including myself, in terms of uncertainty and sort of, you know, lockdowns were happening and the news was coming in. So it's a lot of a challenging time. I remember going for a walk around the lake and just trying to process it all, Rachel, just trying to process all that was coming in through the news, the central channels. And I just sort of, you know, sat back down by the lake and you know, just got myself a coffee. I just felt in the moment. I've never felt more in the moment. Occasion. It was just, you know, a beautiful summer's day and there's so much going on in the world, but there was this sort of moment I had to myself and I just, you know, sipping on a coffee and thinking, I want to write about this. And I just started writing and writing and writing and I didn't think of a title for the book at the time. And then eventually I thought I'm going to sort of write title is Finding Favor in the Moment. So it wasn't this sort of desire to write a book to change the world or any passion to do. I just feel it's the right thing to do at this moment. And I wrote it, published it, did relatively well. It was a lot different to anything else I'd written before. It's more philosophical, more bit deeper, bit more intrinsic than a lot of stuff I've written before. And it's kind of out there. And that's sort of the way the tunes I do as well. It might be just, just going for a walk in the Peak District, get an idea for a tune and just sort of, take a few notes down. I just bring a pad and write down. So I come back and write a few notes for tune, a bit of electronic music, more of a hybrid of music stuff. So these moments of knowing really for me are kind of intuitively where you just, and I tend to find they come along when you're at nature, when you're sort of in that sort of moment and you're in with the elements.
Yeah.
I think it's really great. I mean, to be honest, it's like I was speaking to someone about this sort of recently in a radio interview. And I said that for me, because I was talking about sort of January and sort of how January, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, is a month, but Blue Monday type thing. And I thought, I don't buy into any of that because for me, on that Monday, they said it was Blue Monday, was one of the greatest days where I went, into the forest and I felt like one of the elements. It was beautiful. It was, the clear sky and crisp and, cool. And
January as well. It's that
yeah,
start to get lighter as well.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I've never sort of bought into sort of what people tell me how I should feel. And I think nature is for me a big way. I do spend time in nature every day if possible. And I find myself just, in nature, just feel connected to the universe. And they tend to bring these moments, not trying to force a moment of knowing, but just being with the elements. And so the elements kind of guide you,
Mm.
which is the key for me. Yeah.
Fantastic. And just coming back to everything that you've been saying, those knowing moments are not just moments that you've connected with, well, either with being out in nature, but you've actually done something with it. You've
Yeah.
followed it through. And I think that's the key, really, isn't it? It's like we have these knowing moments of it feeling absolutely right, perhaps I should do that. But then doing and following it through is actually where all those connections and those dots start to actually make real sense, I find. What
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great point, Rachel. Great point. If I look back on my life, I tend to find exactly what you said. It's the dots sort of connect and sort of, you know, it's over years. I think these sort of moments where you sort of reflect back and think these sort of pivotal moments. And it's a really good point you made there. But I mean, the other side to I would say as well, where there's certainly been times when I've, been proactive and put an action in place, but then I felt it's not for me and being comfortable with sort of,
Mm.
walking away from certain things, not looking for the easy way out, but sometimes thinking, well, this isn't for me. And that's one thing I've always done in terms of, I'll write a goal, series of goals. But if I feel that, 6 months into it, it just intuitively is not working for me, then I'm not going to sort of force myself to do it. It's like maybe put it on ice or do something else or just, use it as a sign to sort of go on to a different area where I just speak to people sometimes, Rachel. I just sort of think sometimes, I'm all for like, working through it. You got to work hard, everything else. But I just think sometimes people, it becomes a chore, certain things. I
Oh,
think, well, what, why are you doing it for? Just,
absolutely. Key point,
it-
because, sometimes when we've got that resistance and it's really
yeah.
work and plowing through all that mud to get something done, perhaps there's just something else that we need another knowing moment to enlighten us with before we carry on. And I know that some of the guests that I've been talking to, that might have been 25 years later, where they've written something down and then they put it to one side and literally forgotten about it until it's being pulled out of a cupboard and then it
Mhm.
absolutely resonates and they now have the urge to do something with it because the time is right now. But I think we do put the pressure on ourselves sometimes, don't we? For everything to be immediate, everything needs to be now.
Yes.
The timeline for these knowing moments, it's just a gift that we're given to find the right time of ease to move forward with it. And it doesn't always, and that's a massive thing that I've had to learn because I'm really impatient.
Yeah.
That's been a huge learning curve for me because it's like, oh no, I want that now. I want that right away. How do we do that now?
Mhm.
But when that
Absolutely.
resistance is there, that's our biggest learning curve, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, and absolutely. And that's the important thing for me is sort of recognizing and sort of being really aware of self and sort of, living life best we can. Just sort of that's a really important thing. And sort of, it's like a year or so ago, someone had asked me why I didn't do the PhD and something I might do in the future. I don't know. But the reason we're not doing it is because had I have done that, or gone down that road, I wouldn't have been able to study the things I really wanted to study. And there's only so much hours in a day. And I just had this first for a broad area of knowledge. And, as you know yourself, Rachel, I don't care too much for titles and all that stuff. I said, yeah, well, I'll have a look at it at some point. But in terms of sort of, over the years applying myself, then it's kind of like, running your own race in life and thinking, okay, well, these are the things. And the reason we're not doing it was that there was just so many things. And being a very spiritual person, I see myself as a spiritual scientist. There was so many things that I wanted to sort of read and learn and do, that I felt would take a priority. I've always had is this sort of desire to learn and knowledge and read and learn from people, and that's been a big thing. But I've really spent a lot of time in academic institutions as well and learned there as well. But it's been more on my terms rather than sort of following a set path alongside anybody else. It's been more about, well, this is where I am, this is where I want to be, and we'll sort of, go from there. Really, that's the sort of key. I sometimes feel that we're kind of like on a edge of a pier, and there's an ocean out there. We've come a long way, I think, in terms of, in certain respects as a species, I guess, but there's still like an ocean we don't understand. And
And I don't think we're meant to,
probably not exactly, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
especially in just this long time that we might be here. It's
Yeah,
funny, isn't it, that takes us wherever we're meant to go.
absolutely. And it's just nice to feel it sometimes and sort of, be okay with that, be able to sort of just be in that moment and just, you sort of, look up the stars sometimes and think, wow, we're just like a speck of dust in a cosmic universe that never ends really. And just, we're never probably going to know, the answers to a lot of things. But then you kind of you kind of think of the vast cosmic universe and where we are in all of that is sort of, dropping the ocean and you just,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a really important point that you've made, really, because I know that, for sure this doesn't really matter who you are. We all feel really stupid at times and that we don't,
yeah,
and we haven't got the right skills and we haven't got the right mindset to sort of do something. And I know that I really felt imposter syndrome when I decided to do this podcast because of the people
mhm,
I've been inviting on, and there's a lot of academics, a lot of scientists coming on, and that's totally out of my comfort zone. So to sort of go through that barrier and then try and be comfortable with that. I was probably deeply uncomfortable as I was recording it and trying my best to sort of fit in. But that's a really important learning curve to put
mhm,
ourselves through. We'll criticize that, and that's absolutely fine.
yes,
When we put ourselves in a situation that we're uncomfortable with and we grow and we can understand ourselves, and I know I'm one of those people, I've got to experience it, whether it's good or bad, to see if that's right for me. I physically have to go into that
mhm,
experience. That's what I like to do. But I don't,
mhm,
not that I don't trust anyone else. It's just that I know that what my signals are from my own body and mind, and that's what I trust above everything else. Now,
absolutely, yeah.
the right path as to what I need to learn from that.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But
No, it's really powerful, isn't it?
it is, and I think with that sort of, Rachel, I think you've made some good points there. And I know from sort of radio broadcasting myself over the years, I've been broadcasting for many years. I interviewed a lot of people, some really interesting people on the journey type thing, and I think it's like you said there, just sort of getting immersed in it and just letting it flow. But I would also say, yourself, Rachel, is like, I'm sure that they'll learn a lot from yourself. You've sort of an amazing person, it's amazing stuff. And I think sometimes it's how, I guess in some respects, how we sort of quantify things in life. And, obviously an amazing parent, and the things you've achieved in sort of life are just, are amazing. And the sort of the message you put out there. So I think there's sort of one of the things really where, we're all on our own sort of path in that respect. And I'm sure the guests that you have on board are going to sort of take as much away from learning from you than you will from them, because you've got a lot to offer as well. And you got your own sort of philosophy about things and other things too. And I think that's the sort of key really to these sort of things, is sort of reciprocal learning. And, you know, that's sort of the big thing. And no doubt the audience will sort of engage into like a discussion, and we'll take a lot away from it as well.
Oh gosh, I wasn't looking for any of that, but thank you so much.
Yeah, but it's true, Rachel. It's,
And it's quite right though, Jimmy. I think
yeah,
it's great, for people to actually maybe listen to a podcast or watch this on YouTube and actually know that we are all learning. This is part of
yeah,
the process for me, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm
yeah.
okay at this moment. I'm okay with putting myself out there and being okay with my learning journey on this process. But it's taken me a long time to reach this stage of discomfort, being comfortable with my own discomfort in a way.
Yeah.
So, if anybody is wondering out there how you get to these points and then can be visible with the discomfort as you're working through it, then by all means, please do get in touch with Jimmy. He is absolutely incredible and one of the most humble therapists that I know. He really is an absolute gem. Or you can get in touch
Yeah.
with as well, and you can work with me, or I can point you in the direction of so many different people. But before we go, Jimmy, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out on their working life? Now, we seem to think that might be young people, but actually, there's also a lot of other people who are coming to the fore and changing careers and changing jobs and things and the new ways of working. So, what advice would you give them?
Good question. And I suppose, I mean, everyone's on their own journey, really. I suppose if I look back on my own sort of life, it would sort of reach out to myself, it'd be more sort of along the lines of just enjoy and just trust the process more, especially very, very early on in life. But it's interesting you say, and, my daughter who's a YouTuber, and she's, you know, a football pundit, big in the field of YouTube. And we talk very frequently. And when she sort of mentioned she was going to follow the YouTube path, I thought, what in the world? And I suppose I mentioned her because, like, sometimes I feel like she gives me better advice than I give her for the most part. And she's very young on a journey in early 20s, so making her way in the world and that sort of stuff. So I think, as much as I'd like to think, okay, well, I can give some pointers to people on their journey, but equally it's about sort of backing yourself and sort of believing and just backing yourself and just trusting your own judgment too. I mean, the only thing I would say to anyone sort of starting off on the journey is, from my own journey of having had the privilege of working with some of the most, you know, we want to call them leading people in the field of sort of, be it psychology or LP or hypnotherapy or coaching in general. Everyone started somewhere. I started somewhere, and, as well, there's a point in my own life where I didn't have any knowledge and it took me a long time to learn and get to where I was. So we all start somewhere. So measure yourself against yourself. That's the key. That's what I would say. And run your own race. There's no point sort of measuring yourself against someone, say, for example, who has been in the field for many, many years. That's not to say you can't emulate what they've achieved, but just run your own race. It's like, and just set your own goals, immerse yourself in what you're doing. And like you said, irrespective of what age you come into the field, be it 20, be it 50, be it 70, um, you know, take what you've learned in life as well. That's priceless education. There's many skills that people have learned in life. The skills that you learn in life that you sort of, you can't learn in academia. Bringing up children is a skill that you don't learn in academia. That's the key. Just try and be a better you every day. And cherry pick of some of the, people, cherry pick of some of the people who are in the industry, leading people in the industry, but just measure yourself against yourself. Because if you sort of start measuring yourself against other people, it can get overwhelming. And also, I would say on the final point, don't be afraid to sort of to sort of get out there and have a go. Obviously, within the competency remit, but if the opportunity comes up to go on radio or go on TV or do whatever, take it and believe in yourself. You get an opportunity to go to like an event and that sort of stuff. Just go. and sort of ask questions later. If an opportunity comes to phone someone who is sort of, sometimes people get starstruck and they're afraid of like calling someone, for example, make that call. Everyone's just a human being. Everyone started somewhere. It's a big leveler. That's what I would say. It's just, we're all just
Mm,
making our way in the world. No one has all the answers. At least I haven't met anyone that sort of has all the answers. So, go out there, just back yourself, believe in yourself, and enjoy the journey. Enjoy it. Just, really enjoy it. That's sort of key takeaways, I guess, I would give.
brilliant advice. I love it, Jimmy. Thank you very much. And one last question before we go. Who would you like to see on or hear on here as a guest?
I would say just that, for me, what I find fascinating is that, one thing I try to do on my radio show is sort of to get people from different areas in terms of interview, in terms of, different takes on things. So, yeah, I would say there's a world of interesting people out there that have got a story to tell, and they may not have sort of told their story otherwise, and they have a fascinating story to tell, really. Sir Alex Ferguson, I think, albeit I've only seen him passively one time when I went to United Training Ground to visit a friend of mine. I caught a glimpse of him. I've sort of not met him, spoken to him personally, but he just his aura,
Mm.
just his powerful aura and presence. I think for sure, and he's got this sort of powerful aura and presence about him, even not speaking to him and sort of seeing him there.
Yeah.
Just his energy about him. I think he'd be a really, fascinating person.
Well, you know what? I'd love to get Tony Robbins and I'd love to
Yeah.
get Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
You know, when I worked in TV, it was always the writers for
Yeah.
things like Coronation Street and well, whatever it was. I was always drawn to the writers and the directors who were the great creatives of actually pulling it all together from the very beginning. Because whatever we see on screen, where did it come from? It came
Yeah.
from these real creatives behind the scenes. And the way that they think and talk is they're usually the most humble people, but they're
Mhm.
actually the most fascinating. So yeah, those people behind the scenes are very much the ones that I would really love to have on here and have their weird moments of knowing disclosed.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure.
so many people.
No, there is. There is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
normalize these weird moments of knowing that by bringing people like yourself on, it's to help as many people as possible know that their weird moments are actually really quite normal. And actually
Mm.
something really magical happens when you start to follow through on all these knowing moments because it puts you on this journey like Jimmy's traveled the world and he's got the most beautiful career and he's done the most beautiful things in the most humble of ways. And that probably is you if you're listening right now. But if you've been struggling and you're not quite knowing quite how to tap into these moments and what to do with it, or you're feeling constrained by life in general and you don't know how to break out of it to actually go and follow and these intuitive moments, then come and get in touch with us and we'll put you in the right direction to speak to someone.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's great stuff. Thank you so much, Rachel.
I have you today. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time. It's so much appreciated. And Jimmy, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. I mean, the question really, I'm sort of on the social media on LinkedIn. So if they type my name, Jimmy J-I-N-N-Y, Petruzzi, P-E-T-R-U-Z-Z-I, they can sort of get me on LinkedIn as well. I have the Facebook pages and Instagram and other things like that, just under my name really. And yeah, I mean, yes, probably LinkedIn might be the easiest way to sort of get in touch, and they're more than welcome to connect with me. And obviously, I can help in any way I can, then I'm more than happy to do so. That's for sure. So yeah, it's been great being on the show, Rachel, and great to sort of see you as well.
Oh, it's been great to catch up. Beautiful
Yeah,
to see you and a pleasure as always. So check out the details. Will all be below in the podcast and the YouTube channel where you can read upon that if you wish. Thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll catch up with you very soon. Take care.
thank you, Rachel. Thank you, and everyone for watching, listening.
Thank you so much for listening on The Weird World of Knowing. I do hope you enjoyed your time with us. I'm Rachel Nearing, your host, And gosh, I'm having a ball putting all of this together for you, so I hope you are too. And if you are, please do like, subscribe and share with those who might actually benefit from these weird moments of knowing as they realise how many of their own they've been having all their life. Take care and we'll see you next week.